In a world where left is up and right is apparently wrong, do souls make sense of it all? Or at least have fun trying? Gear up, friends, for Chicken and the Dog.
Welcome to another episode of Chicken and the Dog. I am the dog, and with me, as always, is the guy that also supports the dog, my buddy, the chicken. What up, dog?
The dog. Let's make sure that we keep that singular.
I did on purpose to make
Right.
sure because if I would have put dogs, I would have been lying.
This is true.
Yeah.
And that's not good for our listenership.
No.
Right.
No. Can I get a
Only
witness?
facts. Only facts.
Can I get a witness? Also with us is B-Dawg, our producer from Athens, GA. Man, thank you for being with us, B. Man, we love you, and we really appreciate you being here.
Of course, man. It's a busy day in Athens. We got graduation today. Got one more year, and I'll be out. Excited.
That's right. That's right.
Deuces.
It's going to be very busy downtown. All the traffic coming in for that one person that's graduating from Georgia.
Hey, man, I've actually went to a graduation ceremony in Athens, and it was one of the guys that went to school with my daughter, and he invited me and Kayla and Ernie. What's his name? What's the guy that does the NBA on TBS?
Ernie.
Ernie, right?
Yeah, Ernie. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're talking about the white guy with Shaq
Oh,
and
the
Charles
one that
Barkley?
didn't play. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the one that
Yeah.
didn't play.
Yeah.
He did the commencement speech, man, and it was top notch, man. I mean, it was like it left you with goosebumps, man. It was really good. It wasn't like, if Joe Biden would have been there, he'd been like, "Where am I?" No, I'm just playing.
Yeah,
I'll
they,
leave that
they
up.
save that type of guest for Clemson.
That's right.
There you
Right.
go.
Look, this is the episode that I've been waiting on, but yet also dreading at the same time, because we are going to recap Georgia's season. And I am a dog to the core, man. I am. But I was not impressed with Georgia's season last year. All in all, I mean, yes, we made the playoffs. Good job. We won the SEC. Way to go. We beat Texas twice. That was fantastic. But there was a lot of up and downs and a lot of struggles. So I'm going to go into this thing and just go through the list of the games real quick. And then we'll just kind of dive in there, because I'm sure the chicken's got a lot to say, as probably so is B-Dawg. So we opened up with number 14 Clemson, and we beat them 34-3. At that point, I was like, all right, we're good to go. Then we played Tennessee Tech, beat them 48-3. And then week 3 happened, and me and the chicken were together on this. And it was mentioned on the show when we had Senior Chief on here about how they had to leave the dog alone for a while I was watching this game. We took on Kentucky in Kentucky. I'll give them that. And we scraped out a win 13-12 against Brock Vandergriffroff. And not knowing at this point, we're going, who the heck is Georgia? Then we had a week off. Then we took on a number 4 Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And at halftime, we were getting our brains stomped in. And we came back. Actually, at one point, we were leading the game, but we ended up losing our first loss 41-34. Then we played Auburn and just trounced them 31-13. Mississippi State. This shouldn't have been as close. As if you go back and look at Mississippi State's season, everybody beat the doors off of Mississippi State. And this was the first game that Van Buren was starting quarterback for Mississippi State. Should not have been this close, but it was 41-31. Where was our defense? I don't know.
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't it like a very much like we had 41? It was like 41-17, and they kind of just scored in the last couple drives at the end of the game, or was it
Yeah.
actually a close game?
No, it was no. We had them handled most of the game, but
That's what I figured.
it was just not pretty. It was not a good look.
Yeah.
Then I'm proud of this game. We took on number 1 Texas in Austin, and we beat them 30-15. Now that looked like Georgia. Then we took on Florida and handled business in Jacksonville 34-20. Then we had to meet up with my guy, Lane Kiffin. We took on number 16.
How you doing?
We took on number 16, Ole Miss. And just like they did to South Carolina, man, they trounced Georgia. Georgia didn't stand a chance. They beat us 28-10. And so now we're just past midseason, and we've got 2 losses. So in my opinion, we're outside looking in on these playoffs. Well, then we beat Tennessee 31-17. Then you're like, okay, now Georgia's again. Then Massachusetts, we beat them 49-21. Georgia Tech.
59. Don't cheat yourself out of 10 points.
Oh, 49-21. Sorry, 59-21. Sorry. I'm not dyslexic, but for some reason I just read that wrong. Then we took on Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia Tech was not a bad team last year. They were not. They took down Miami. So they were not a bad team. But we beat them 44-42 in 8 overtimes. I could barely stand after that game because I'll just leave it at that. That was
a fun one to watch. It was a fun game to watch. I can't imagine what it was like as a Georgia fan or even as a Tech fan, to be on one solid side of that matchup. But as a football fan, that was a fun game to watch.
It was very, very stressful for sure. And it's like it would never end.
Right.
One
point, you wished it would have just end. I was sitting there in section 324, and I'm sitting there, and it's freezing. Keep this in mind as well. Were you there, dog?
No, I was not there.
It is freezing up there. Not only is it cold, you're probably 5,000 feet in the air, something like that. It is so cold, and at one point you just wish it was over.
That's the point where you find some big girl and you snuggle right up to her.
Wow. That just happened on this show.
Yeah. So, but don't do that, B, because you've got a girlfriend.
Well, me and her were snuggling.
Well,
we were snuggling. That's for sure. We were
careful. Your father listens to this show.
Hey.
Yeah, that's right. This is clean. Look, so there are some things that happened a couple weeks prior to that between A&M and Alabama, and this allowed Georgia to go into the SEC championship. And we took on a number 2 Texas again, went into overtime, and we were successful. We beat them 22-19. And then that gave us a bye in the playoffs. And we talked about that before, and I think we'll talk about that again on this show. I think that bye is not a good thing to be in the playoffs. It's not good. But we took a bye. We went to New Orleans. I was actually at that game. The game got delayed because of the shooting, or that guy that was running through people with his vehicle in New Orleans. So it got delayed another game. It was just chaotic, but we ended up losing 23-10. Not the season that Georgia fans hope to be. Regular season 10-2, won the SEC championship, beat Texas twice. Those are the highlights, but there's also some things, as a Georgia fan, we always wanted to say that Nick Saban was the one that had our number. But maybe it's just Alabama in general, because Saban's gone and they still beat us. So there you go, chicken.
I think the team that had Georgia's number this year was Georgia. As I look back over the season in trying to prep for this show, I would dub this season for the Georgia Bulldogs as the who is Carson Beck. As you look at some of the numbers that he would put up, it was just so off and on compared to who we thought he was coming into the year, who we expected him to be. And every time that he would get a little bit of momentum, like even in the loss to Alabama, kid threw for 439 yards. And then you come back against Auburn, who did not have a great year. He throws for 240. On top of that, the up and down of Beck, is Beck throwing a bad ball? Is the receiver room not as talented as we thought they were, that they just can't catch what he's throwing? Where exactly is the dip? Well, if you look at the run game for Georgia this past season, it wasn't stellar either. And it hadn't been for a minute. It's been a minute since Georgia really had that true standout running back that was going to plow you for 100 to 150 yards a game, because that's Georgia football. You mentioned the game against Texas, the regular season game against Texas, when Georgia looked like Georgia. Ask yourself why. Because their defense was on the hunt, and then the offense followed. Every time Georgia tries to lead with offense and let their defense kind of shore up the back end of a ball game, they got problems. That's what I saw from Georgia this year. I think that the Georgia Bulldogs have the Georgia Bulldogs number.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%, man. And you're right, man. Georgia can't lead with an offense. They can't. Alabama can't lead with an offense. They're not an offensive team. They are a defensive team. Georgia is a defensive-minded team. We beat you when the other team has the ball. We don't. I remember one year, man, it was like several years. I think it may have been the year we won a national championship or the year before that, where I think we didn't allow any touchdowns for like 7 or 8 games straight. 0 touchdowns. That's Georgia football. And when you allow an Alabama to score 41 points, you allow a Mississippi State to score 31 points, a Florida to score 20, Georgia Tech to score 42. I mean, you allow these teams to score points. It's not good. It's not a good look.
UMass put up 21.
I know.
Granted, you destroyed them 59-21 in that game, but you gave up 21 points to those guys. Georgia is so much better when they are defensively focused, and then their offense, 9 times out of 10, gets a short field to deal with, to run the ball, to throw play action, and to get the ball into the end zone, and then put points on the board. But you got to lead. Georgia Bulldogs have to lead with defense.
That's right. We're not Ole Miss. Ole Miss is an offensive team. That's Lane's strength. Kirby's strength is defense, and you're absolutely right. Our defense was not the standout. Now, watching the spring game. Now, I know that the spring game is the spring game, right? But their defense looked great. They looked like they had some holes fixed, man. And so I'm hoping that they get back to that. Now, when Muschamp left Carolina, he came to Georgia as our defensive coordinator. I know you're saying bye, Felicia. But Muschamp is a good defensive coordinator. He's a good defensive guy. There's no doubt about that. Is he a head coach?
No.
Not even close. I think he's proven that in 2 different teams, Florida and South Carolina. He's not a head coach.
I would argue 3, because if you remember, he was the head coach in waiting at Texas under Mac Brown.
Oh.
And that didn't play out. Then he left and went and took that job at Florida and showed us, well, I don't know that it was ever said out loud, but my estimation is, based on his performance at Florida, based on his performance at South Carolina, that Coach Brown knew that wasn't going to be the guy. And so it was one of those, there's an opportunity at Florida. Yeah, you should probably do that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Let me know if you need help packing.
Don't let the door hit you, with the good Lord split you.
There you go.
So, but Muschamp came in, after how long has Beamer been there? 4 years, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Muschamp immediately came over to Georgia, and Georgia's defense got better. Now, Muschamp's had something we don't know. We don't know why he's not the defensive coordinator anymore. He's a defensive analyst, but last year you didn't see Muschamp was not on the sidelines, rooting these guys on and getting them. Guess what game he was over there on? That SEC championship. He was on the sidelines, helping running that defense. And I think I think we're missing that. I'm not saying that Schumer's not a good defensive coordinator. I don't know.
Isn't that weird that they wouldn't let Texas bring Bevo into that game, but Muschamp was allowed on the sidelines? I'm just asking.
Look, man, Bevo is a dangerous animal.
Okay.
Mighty delicious, but yet dangerous.
Okay.
You saw what he tried to do to Uga. I tell that story a lot. You remember it was in the Sugar Bowl several years ago, and they beat us. Texas beat us. Texas beat us, but I think it's pre-game. They tried to bring the two mascots close, and Bevo tried to stick Uga, and that would have been a very dead cow if he would have killed Uga. You know how many rednecks out there would have taken that joke out, would have went to jail just to take that dude out? There's a bunch. I know a few. So
you're talking to a Gamecock fan and you're using the word redneck. Like, I get it.
I think they start out in Carolina.
Well,
but look, so Georgia's season on the defense, yes, was not stellar. But our offense, come on, man. We had more drop balls than any team in the history of college football last season. I think we set a record. And you mentioned it earlier, man. Was it Carson Beck didn't know how to throw? Was it the receivers didn't know how to catch? That count when they talk about drop balls. They don't talk about a ball that the guy had to reach crazy to try to get it and was only able to tip it. No, we're talking a catchable ball, and they just dropped them. If you go back and you look at the film, it's not like his balls are all wonky. It's a good, clean, crisp spiral coming at him. Is it too hard? Is it too fast? Do they have small hands? I don't know.
One thing we do know, there you go. One thing that while we're talking about small hands and carny folk, that Carson Beck had a face mask on, so you can't tell that you're looking at someone that should be in the carnival. So it wasn't that. It wasn't his face that was throwing him off. It wasn't like, oh my God, Sloth threw that ball to me. They weren't getting caught up in that.
Do you think he'd have played better if you'd have gave him a Baby Ruth?
Maybe, or if he had already gotten past this whole Shakira fix that he's on. I don't know. Maybe if he drove a Ford Focus instead of a Lambo to class, he would have been more concentrated on what he was supposed to do as a football player instead of a campus icon.
So do you think that Carson Beck drove a beautiful Lamborghini to overcome his slothness?
I mean, he's making up for something.
Look, I could pick on the guy. He's no longer a Georgia Bulldog. He went to Miami. And look, I guess, get back to being serious, I guess we'll know who Carson Beck is, right? We're going to know who Carson Beck is this coming season, because I'm sure he's going to have some people to throw to in Miami. And so I guess we'll know. But I think going back to the last game of the season or for Georgia, which is against Notre Dame in the playoffs, a couple things. All four teams that got byes lost.
Yep.
All four of them. So I do not think that is a good thing. Because the other 8 teams that got to play, they were all cold.
Mhm.
Then they got a warm up game, and now they had to play. I also gonna kind of contribute that loss to. Do I think Notre Dame was a better team than Georgia overall? I'm gonna say no. I don't think they were. I don't think Notre Dame was a bad team. Don't get me wrong. I think they were pretty good. I think Riley Leonard was definitely he's a gamer. There's no doubt about that. He's got that it factor. You know, he wants to win. He's never going to quit. He showed that in the national championship, even though they were getting throttled. He kept going and going and going and made it a game. But I think overall Georgia was a better team. But you put you put Gunnar Stockton. And if you look at Georgia's schedule or the year, it's not like Gunnar got a whole lot of playing time. It's not like we were killing people all season long and Gunnar was coming in at halftime and getting in a lot of reps. No. So he didn't get a lot of snaps in the regular season. So I think the stage was too big for Gunnar Stockton in that Sugar Bowl in that playoff game.
I don't know how I feel about that. I'm gonna bring something up here, and it's gonna lead into something else. So bear with me. We talked about Nico last episode, and the raw talent that he's got, and the fact that he is a good quarterback, especially playing his freshman year. Carson Beck this past season, Nico had 2,600 yards last year.
Yeah.
Carson Beck threw for 3,485 yards. That's not a slouch season.
With all the drop passes.
With all those drops, 3,485 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 12 picks. Okay, maybe that's more interceptions than you want out of a Heisman contender at the beginning of the season quarterback, a quarterback that you're expecting to lead your program to possibly another national championship appearance. But a great year, a really solid year out of Carson Beck, despite all the drops. I come back to Georgia being its own worst enemy. If you look at the running game that Georgia put up this past season, you didn't have any single running back. Not only that didn't hit 1,000 yards on the ground, but you didn't have one that broke 700 yards on the ground. Nate Frazier, 671 yards. Trevor Etienne, 609 yards. Now, I know that there's a lot of platooning going on in college football now, and let's get fresh legs in the backfield. But Georgia football has an identity. Just like you mentioned it earlier, Alabama has an identity. South Carolina has an identity that when they play football this way, they tend to be successful. When they try and get cute, like the Brad Knott era, they're not so good, right? So when you embrace your identity as a historical football program, good things tend to happen. I would argue that Georgia maybe is a little bit lost in who they really are. You talked about the GOAT, Nick Saban. This is where I'm going with all this. That he may have had Georgia's number for several years. Think about who Nick Saban was as a head coach of a massive program and who Kirby Smart is as the head coach of Georgia, and a lot of the comparisons and, well, Kirby's the best now, blah, 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 because Nick Saban hung it up. One of the things that Nick Saban did well was in the coordinators and the assistant coaches that he brought into his program at Alabama. Your chicken scratch moment for this episode brought to you by Off the Chain Kennels, OTC Kennels on Facebook and Instagram, breeders of champions. Your chicken scratch moment is Kirby anywhere near where Nick Saban was when it comes to recognizing the proper people to bring into his program at Georgia? not their program at Georgia. Kirby, this is not where you bring in your sorority sisters from your days at Georgia with Muschamp or Bobo, excuse me. This is not where you bring in your friends. What's the line from Jerry Maguire? This is showbiz. This is not show friends. Is that some of the underlying issue, not the issue, but some of the underlying issue in Georgia, knowing who Georgia is and taking up the mantle, because it's a big one, of being the defining program in the SEC? There's opportunity right now to decide who is going to be the defining program in the Southeastern Conference right now. For years, it's been Alabama. I don't care that LSU had that wonderful season in 19 and won the national championship. That's great for them. That didn't make them the defining program in this conference.
That's right.
Alabama has held that title for a long time. It's up for grabs right now. And if Kirby is going to be the coach that we all think he is, then he's got to do the things necessary to grab that mantle and carry it.
Yeah. I probably couldn't agree with you more on that. Nick Saban, you're welcome. Nick Saban was great. I don't think Nick Saban had friends in college football. I don't know if Nick Saban has a friend, period. Maybe his wife. I don't know.
She likes him enough.
And maybe Herb Street now, maybe Lee Corso, should have been David Pollock, but is not. Desmond, yeah, they're probably close. But when he was a head coach, it was all about coaching, man. It was all about winning. I'll go back to the statement that he made years ago when they asked him about Derrick Henry, about running him 40, 50, 60, 70 times in a game. They're like, you're going to kill this guy's legs. He's never going to have a pro career because you're going to wear him out. What do you think about that? And he said, look, he goes, I like these guys. I love, they're great. But my job is to win football games at the University of Alabama. And if that means I've got to run this kid 80, 90, 100 times in a game, I'm going to do it because I'm going to win. Kirby Smart right now, and I like what you said about, that mantle is up to grab. Somebody gets to grab that torch and run with it. And I think Kirby has the opportunity, but he's going to have to get rid of his pals. Mike Bobo is his pal. I get that. But Mike Bobo is the same Mike Bobo that we had under Mark Richt that, yes, has flashes of great, but is so easy to read. He's typical, and I think he's trying to take Georgia away from what Georgia is supposed to be, which is a run first, I'm going to knock you in the freaking mouth football team. And I don't think we're there. I think Bobo's trying to take us away from that, and it's not good.
I think the main reason he's still here is for recruiting purposes. We saw last Monday, or what was it, 4 days ago now, we got Jared Curtis signed with us, 5-star.
Number one quarterback.
Yeah, number one quarterback out of Tennessee, Nashville Christian. But him and his family are very close to Mike Bobo. And I think that's what it ultimately came down to. So maybe he was one of the key factors in why Bobo ended up staying for the 25 season.
Look, and I don't have a problem with that. In fact, before the show, Dawg, you asked me or tried to pick my mind about the fact that Bobo spent some time at the University of South Carolina. And he did. And I don't have a problem. I don't look back on his time here the same way that I do Muschamp. Muschamp did everything he could to single-handedly destroy the fact that we even play football here. And that's probably the only thing that he's been successful at in his head coaching career is dismantling our football team.
Good job.
However, you didn't do enough, big guy. We're back. I digress. I believe that Bobo did good things during the time that he was here at South Carolina. He was going to be Shane Beamer's first offensive coordinator at the University of South Carolina. And I bring that up to say this. He's currently the OC at Georgia. He was going to be the OC at Carolina. I think in the beginning of Shane Beamer's tenure here, that would have been a good thing for the University of South Carolina. Why? B-Dawg, you mentioned it. His ability to recruit. He's tied into this conference and has been for probably his entire life, at least his adult life. So he knows where to go. He knows the players to talk to. He knows the coaches, and he can bring in that talent to a University of South Carolina. You're at Georgia right now, and we've talked about, I want to make perfectly clear so that none of the bozos that listen to this show will misunderstand me, right? Yes, the mantle is up for grabs. No, I'm not saying that Beamer's going to grab it right now. Get out your Q-tips, clean out your eardrum, and hear me again. The mantle's up for grabs for a certain number of schools. I think that Alabama is still in that mix. I know that Georgia is leading that race. Texas is in that mix. I don't know that there are many outside of that three that are really grabbing at that mantle right now. Bobo at Georgia, maybe as a recruiting coordinator, I'm not saying that you take him off of the staff, but he's not an OC fit at the University of Georgia. You've got to have somebody else that comes and takes charge of that offense and, again, kind of turns Georgia back, brings that battleship back around to being who Georgia football is. Is Bobo the guy that can get the right players to come to UGA? Maybe, sure, I don't know. But he's not the guy that can lead your offense.
Yeah, I would do, because Georgia's got, I mean, if they can afford to pay Carson Beck enough money to buy him a Lambo, a Mercedes, a Land Rover, $1 million house, I don't know what all they paid him, but the boy was making some freaking money.
Tickets to Shakira, whatever.
Yeah, they got enough money, man, where they could actually. I think Todd Monken, when we won our 2 national championships, the last 2 national championships, that was under the offense of Todd Monken. I think Todd Monken left college football and went to the Baltimore Ravens, not for money. I think he was tired of working as many hours as it takes to work as an offensive coordinator on the college level, because if you're not scheming up plays and running practices and running games, you're recruiting. It never ends, right? So in the NFL, I think he gets more time off. So why doesn't Georgia bring a Todd Monken back? Say, look, I just need you to run practices and run the games. Keep Mike Bobo, keep him the same pay. I don't care. Pay him $2 or $3 million a year and let him be your recruiting specialist. Or let's even get fancy. You are the vice president of recruiting. Sounds great. It's a great title. And I think if something like that happened, it could be astronomical for Georgia.
Well, lucky for us, Todd Monken signed a contract extension with the Ravens in February.
Yeah, I know.
And he's making way more money there.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. There's no way. Are you saying bring him back as the OC?
Yeah.
I think in a perfect world that'd be amazing, but we'd have to pay him dang near head coaching money for that. And I would pay it. Don't get me wrong. I would pay it, but if I had it. But I don't know. I don't know if we can do that. Like, I don't think just budget-wise it's possible.
Budget-wise, it's possible, yes.
No, I mean,
got
like,
the money.
But they set a certain amount of range for each type of position in the
Look,
staff.
man, just get rid of synchronized swimming, and you'll be fine.
Hey, we were competing this year.
You got to be good at something.
Yeah, apparently it was not football last year. I mean, yeah, look, Georgia went, 10-2. We won the SEC championship. And a lot of Georgia fans would say, that's great. Man, we won the SEC championship. And don't get me wrong, that's a good feat. I mean, we were the best team at the end of the day out of 16 very good teams. We were the best. We won it. Or at least on paper, we were the best. But if you really look down the season, Georgia's got a lot of holes. Georgia's got an identity crisis that they've got to fix. And I think they just have to get back to Georgia football.
I agree with that, but I also want to say this. And bear in mind, I am not a Georgia fan. But for any program out there, if you can look back on a season and say these two things, wow, we really struggled this past year. It was a tough year. And we went 10-2. My friend, that's a good problem to have.
I know, but I get that. We went 10-2.
And you won the SEC.
I know that, but let's go back. If you go back and you look at, and I'll even just say the Kentucky game. That game how bad y'all beat the doors. I'm just off Kentucky. I'm glad we didn't play Carolina this year. We probably could have got beat by Carolina.
We would have lost.
We would have lost. I think so. I think Carolina could have beat us. And that's not good. I think Tennessee, the reason we thumped Tennessee, I think it was just one of those hated games. And they played in Athens, so that was good. That
Great
helped.
matchups. Great matchups.
Do you think, and we talk on this show all the time about culture, and the culture of Georgia, as demonstrated by Kirby, seems to be take care of your buddies. So do you think that Carson was trying to take care of Vander Griffgroff in that game? Just throw him a bone. Make it look close.
No.
No?
The way he played it, you could make a convincing argument.
I try.
Yeah, he had 160 yards against Kentucky's defense, which was not good. I think Lenore Sellers against Kentucky probably had 160 yards in the first quarter. And then you get a Carson Beck to go in there, man. That, again, he threw for 3,400 yards. There was one game against Mississippi State. He had almost 500 yards. Boy, he would have been a great pick for fantasy football that week for sure. But he just had up and down flashes, and you just don't know if it was him. Was it receivers? Was it Mike Bobo? But I will tell you this. There is no doubt about it. We miss a Brock Bowers and a Ladd McConkey. Bad.
Of course. South Carolina misses Jadeveon Clowney. South Carolina misses Connor Shaw. South Carolina misses Marcus Lattimore. Let's go back in time and find all the greats. Steven Garcia. George Rogers, for crying out loud. Bring him back.
Yes.
He's a big dude. He'd be hard to bring down. My point is this. You can look in the rear view all day long. What you got to pay attention to is what's here. And what was here in 2024 was Carson Beck, and we give him a hard time. But he threw for almost 3,500 yards. Again, there are bigger problems to have in college football. There's a bigger problem than 10-2. Ask all the teams that went 9-3.
Yeah, and I guess I'm one of those people that, yes, I'm a Georgia fan. Yes, I'm going to always pull for them. But I'm also going to be very critical of that team. And I'm going to look at the things that they need to improve. Just like, coaching my kids, I coached my girls softball and basketball and synchronized swimming. No, I didn't coach that. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know if I can swim.
I was saying you got to float first.
Yeah. Big dogs don't swim too easy. That's for sure. We make a heck of a splash, so that's right. But anyway, coaching all of my girls' teams, I wasn't the guy or the dad or the coach that says, oh, my kid's going to play all the time because my kid's the best and blah, 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 blah. Man, I was very critical of my kids. Now, not to a point where I would, make them feel small or whatever, but I was like, look, you can improve this. You could do this, and I played the best player. And I think that kind of goes back to Kirby, man. Kirby, you gotta play the best people, man. And that doesn't just mean people that are on the field. that means people that are up in the box calling their plays, man. Get it right.
We'll see. I think that Carson Beck is a good quarterback. I think we'll see more of that this next year when he's at Miami. I want to look real quick as we close the chapter on this season for the Georgia Bulldogs at what all they have and are currently losing in player personnel. They are losing a total, by my count, of 33 total players. Okay. That's 15. That's one of the lower numbers in the SEC. 15 that are transferring out of the program, and to include Carson Beck. He's transferred to Miami. Jaden Rashada has transferred out. 15 total players transferring out. 14. That's right. 14 players that you lost to the NFL. 4 of your 5 starting offensive linemen are now playing somewhere for a lot of money on Sundays. And 4 players you lost to graduation. That's
Wow.
it. So a lot of guys are going to be coming back to Georgia from this team this past season. A lot of talent that's going to be coming into Georgia via new recruits, via transfer portal. I think the future remains bright for Kirby. Again, it's the good problem that you have is you're not trying to build necessarily, you're trying to tweak.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty fair, right? We sent a lot of people to the draft this year. There's no doubt about that. And, Carson Beck originally came out and said he was going to the draft. He says, I'm going to NFL, and left. And I guess didn't necessarily, I don't know how all that works now. It used to be once you sign with an agent, you're done. But now you're allowed to have agents in college football. So I don't know how all that works anymore. But I think, before he signed on whatever dotted line it needed to sign that he declares for the draft, Miami called up and said, hold up, swole up. I'm fixing to pay you. And I don't blame him for doing it. We'll talk about this next week when we talk about Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers probably should have done the same thing. Going into leaving Texas, but he didn't. He got drafted.
Now he's a Dolphin.
He's right. A Dolphin.
Now he's a Dolphin.
I don't think that's a good fit for him.
Yeah, it is. I think if Tua, inevitably gets another concussion, then there's a chance. Him and Zach Wilson are down there now. So,
yeah, I think he could be a good fit in Miami. But we lost a lot. We lost some to the portal, like you said. It was 13. That's 15 to the portal. 15 to the portal. That's very low. And we'll talk about this on the forecast show, who we got coming in, but we did get 2 stud wide receivers. So that should help fill in some of those gaps this year. And hopefully we get back Branson Robertson, he's not coming back.
Is Georgia State.
Who was the other one?
What do you mean?
I thought we had another kid that was hurt. Who am I talking about?
Roderick Robinson?
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah,
I'm so confused.
I believe he's either floating in the portal still, or he did decide to come back. It doesn't look like he's decided quite yet. But yeah, Branson's off of Georgia State, which is a huge drop off. I mean, come on now, that's insane. I think he must be trying to be a workhorse down there. But
yeah, I think he wants the majority of the carries. He's looking. If he had stayed at Georgia, he's looking at splitting time with Nate Frazier coming in now. Roderick Robertson did have a fairly decent year, 2 games played. He's on what I look at, he's not showing as being in the portal or transferring out right now. So
that's what I was talking about.
Yeah. Branson is much better than Roderick, though. Roderick can't stay healthy, but neither of them, I guess, can. But when healthy, I think Branson's a lot better.
I think Nate Frazier looks almost like a Swift, man. He's pretty good, man. I think he'll do well. And we got another freshman running back that was pretty 5-star, 4-star.
Edwards. Let me see.
Yeah, so we got
Bo Walker, excuse me.
Yeah, but I will say this, though, and I'm going to have to really agree with the chicken, man. If Georgia wants to really plug in the holes, man, to be a national championship contender, I think we have to get that running game up and running.
I think a lot of last year's kind of offensive failures. I know we talked about Carson throwing for almost 3,500. Like, that's huge, but I think a lot of these drops and a lot of the slow offensive moments was due to the chemistry. I don't think he was a leader, and I think that's something that will change this year.
You think Gunnar Stockton's the leader?
I think he's a better leader. I'm not saying he's going to throw for 3,500, but I think the offense, you could just see how the offense looked right when he came in that Texas game, second game of the year, second time we played Texas in the SEC. Like, I think the way he looks like he actually has the respect of the team, and I don't think Carson had that. I think he was focused on the money.
Well, if you look at Carson Beck, I mean, he drove a Lambo, right? From what I was told, Gunnar Stockton drives an old F-150.
I have a picture
he's had
of it
forever, and so this I mean, that ought to tell you who he is, right? That kind of speaks volumes. They just say he's a good old country boy, kind of like Fromm, and I just hope he's a little bit more talented than Jake Fromm.
It was his grandpa's truck. Yeah, it's an old 150. It's just a 2-door.
I love it.
It's awesome.
I think that he's got the opportunity, and I go back to when he was a recruit for the University of South Carolina, that he's just got that similar on-field attitude of a Brett Favre.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm going to do whatever I've got to do to get that first down, to get that inch, to get the nose of the ball across the goal line. You saw that during the time when he came in the SEC championship game and got his bell rung.
Oh, my God. It was awful.
His focus was on picking up inches and yards. It was not on, is this going to hurt a little bit?
Mm-mm.
And then what happened? He got right back up.
He got right back up.
Found his helmet. Not sure that he found out where he was on the planet at that point in time, but he found his helmet and he was ready to go until his offensive lineman was like, "Nah, bro, you got to go sit down now. Your helmet came off."
Yeah, he was ready though.
He was ready.
And then the real leader stood in, right? He came in.
Yes, Kirby made a decision to send Beck back out there.
One-arm Beck. He had
That's
one
right.
arm at the time. But
Don't screw it up. Turn around and hand it to this guy.
Yeah, I think Gunnar's going to do a really good job for Georgia. And keep in mind, Gunnar Stockton, and I'll probably say this again when we do the forecast show, just as a reminder, but Gunnar Stockton, as a high schooler, he broke 2 records in the state of Georgia. One was held by Deshaun Watson, and the other one was held by Trevor Lawrence. So this dude knows how to play football. There is no doubt about that. So I'm excited. I'm hoping the future looks good. I hope Bobo can get out of his way and let this boy win. But I guess all in all, not a bad season for Georgia in 2024.
I guess, like I said, there are 3 schools, and you can bring Missouri into the mix and say that there are 4, but there are 3 that were outside the playoffs looking in at 9-3 records that would say, yeah, Georgia had a good year at 10-2. That's a good fallback year to have.
Yeah, but I don't know, and I'll say this. I'll close with this, unless anybody else anything else to say, but. Has Georgia fans got to a point where it's national championship or nothing? We won back-to-back. Before it was let's win the SEC, let's win the SEC championship, and then we started doing that some, but then we won 2 back-to-back national championships. So now is it natty or not? I mean, that's, if you ask most Alabama people, that's what they would say. It's national championship or nothing.
I would say that the dynamic of college football has changed. And I'm glad that you brought this up, because I thought about this when we talked about on the last show, the way too early top 25, right? Like, these preseason rankings mean absolutely nothing anymore. They didn't mean a whole lot prior to the modern era of college football. They mean a whole lot less now because it all comes down to that playoff, the 12-team playoff. So when we talk about these programs that in the past would have been national championship or bust, I think now that mentality is going to swing more toward playoffs or bust. When you look at the playoffs this past season and the teams that were vying to get in about midseason, right? The teams that you still felt like they had a chance, and then the teams that actually made it into the playoffs, and then the team that won the whole thing, Ohio State. The Ohio State, if you're inclined to have to say that sort of thing.
That's so dumb.
I don't think that any of us, especially at the beginning of the year, who are not Buckeye fans, would have pointed to that school and said, oh, yeah, natty or bust. I don't think that we would have said that. I think we would have said that maybe about a Georgia. I think that we would have said that possibly about a Texas. I don't think that you would have said that about Ohio State. I think that the dynamic has shifted because you're talking about 12 teams right now, that it's going to be playoffs or bust, because you look at the gold that you find during that time of year. It's closer to the NFL structure than it ever has been before. And these NFL franchises don't sit there and say Super Bowl or bust. They fight with everything that they've got to get into those playoffs, because the whole season starts over at that point.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I would, yeah.
I've blown your mind. I see the smoke coming out of your headset.
Oh, that happens every day. So that's nothing new. I mean, and that's not a very tall task to tackle. So
rub his tummy, folks. He'll love you forever.
That's right. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, man. Because in the NFL, if you start listening to, after, mid-season, right at mid-season in the NFL, they don't talk about Super Bowl. They are just talking about playoffs. So you're kind of right. I mean, if you take the top 12 teams, or hopefully at some point we get to 16, because I think we will, is there a huge difference between those 12 or 16 teams? Maybe some, but any given Saturday, right?
Right.
I mean, Ohio State didn't look as good during the regular season as they did postseason. My God. I mean, they look unstoppable postseason, but they looked stoppable. I mean, how many times did we talk about on the show that Ryan Day was going to lose his job?
Right.
We talked about it on many, many different episodes. So I think you're right, man. It's you get to the playoffs. That's the thing. Get to the playoffs, and then it's a reset, and now it's on. So
yeah, and again, I think for a program like Georgia, let me back up. SMU made it to the playoffs. Now, we all knew going into that was not going to play out well. Okay,
no.
We all loved Boise State and Ashton Genty, but we knew that was ultimately not going to play out well for Boise State to be in the playoffs. So there are programs that are going to want to get in the playoffs. South Carolina would have loved to have gotten to be that 9-3 team that got to the playoffs. I think that there's a difference between the programs that really want to get to the playoffs and maybe they make it, versus where I think a Georgia is now that can say before the first snap, it's playoffs or bust. Like, we don't want to just make it to the playoffs. It's playoffs or bust. I think that there's a difference between those two types of programs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's pretty good. And like I said, we're going to have a forecast show on Georgia. We started out, we got one more recap show left that we're going to do next week. And that is Hook 'em Horns. Saw them off. Okay, we got them both. So We're going to talk about the Longhorns and their seasons, and we're probably going to spend most of the time talking about their 2 losses to Georgia last season because those were just absolutely great. I was in Texas when they lost to Georgia, and it was, in the SEC championship, it was my mother-in-law's 70th birthday party, and it was awesome. But anyway, we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to start doing a forecast show, and we're going to go right back and start with Texas. So we're going to be talking about Texas back to back, and then we're going to go. Instead of going like from the bottom up, we're going to go from the top down because I think we're going to run out of time to be able to knock all 16 teams out before the season starts. So we want to definitely start with the top. I don't think you guys really care about us talking about Mississippi State. So,
other than the one Mississippi State Bulldog fan that listens to the show,
we love you.
We're gonna get there.
Yes,
we're gonna do it. Gotta put some work in.
Yeah, and I actually think Mississippi State's a good program. There's nothing wrong with it. They're a mid-tier, a mid-level SEC program. They've always been kind of mid-tier. Dak Prescott came from
nowhere to go but up.
That's right. They have nowhere to go but up.
Right.
So, look, B, you got anything before we close?
No, man, nothing about Georgia, but yeah, y'all make sure y'all are following us on all the social medias and subscribe and comment, man. We're gonna reach back out to y'all.
Yeah, we love the comments. Love the comments. Look, I got nothing else. Chicken, you got anything?
I'm all crowed out.
Yeah, I thought so. All right, guys, look, love us, like us, email us, subscribe. Love you, deuces.
Bye.